Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer. My good buddy Juan, not my good body, my good buddy Juan from Juan on Juan podcast is here. He just got off of work. I've been moseying around, not knowing what I'm doing all day long, but we have a date to talk about Severance. Juan is like, I want to come on yours, and you got to watch Severance, and we're going to talk about it. And so I struggled and suffered through the first episode, which is boring as fuck. And
Yes.
then it got really good. And my girlfriend, who generally like isn't as into TV watching maybe as the rest of us, and certainly isn't into some of the like more sci-fi dystopian things usually, got really into this one. In fact, at one point over the last few weeks, we spent all Sunday laying in bed watching, like binging on it, which is something we've only ever done like one time before in all the years we've been together, right? So it definitely was really good. And I'm glad that you enticed me back in. Like, I think I watched the first episode, like, not when it first came out, but like some short time after that. And like, I don't know, that first scene on the table and how long it takes to get through that was fucking boring. And I don't think we even made it through the table scene last time. But it's fucking good. It's fucking relevant. It brings up a lot of stuff from my own experiences, but also obviously from research that I've done and other things I've talked about. So I'm super excited to talk about it with you tonight. Welcome back, my friend. How are you doing?
Wait, you have a girlfriend?
I do.
I'm just I know,
Hot
I'm
too.
just I'm just joking.
I know it's hard to imagine, but yes, I have a hot girlfriend, and
Yeah.
most of the viewers have seen her or know her or whatever. Have you? You've not seen her?
Yeah, I've seen her plenty of times.
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
pulling your leg. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad. Yes, the first season, similar to Twin Peaks, is a grind. It is a slog, but you have a sense of appreciation once you get further down the line of those earlier episodes because then you start to connect the dots
Mm-hmm.
of those early. Oh, that's why that was going on, or because it all again, it's very fuzzy, and we have a season three coming out, so it's gonna be interesting. But shout out to Ryder Lee for introducing me to this show, and he can even tell you I was the same way. I was texting, I was like, bro, what is this, dude? This sucks. When does it get good? Why are you making me watch this? He's like, no, dude, just stick it out. I stuck it out, and it was very, very interesting. Ben Stiller, executive producer, and I believe a director as well. You have Keanu Reeves in there. You have a whole bunch of different people, and
Who
it's
was
a
Keanu Reeves?
the building in season two, the voice of the building of the
Oh,
video when they
okay. Okay.
like,
The voice of the building. I was like, I didn't see Keanu Reeves.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, like it's the best show I've watched in a while.
yes,
Yeah, certainly the best show I watched in 2025. Hopefully it won't take till 2028 to get season three because it took 3 years to get the last one, right? So from the last one. So hopefully it comes a little sooner than that. But whatever it is, this is a really well done series. And like some of my complaints sometimes about these series is I feel like they're confusing just for the sake of being confusing and they don't go back and fill in all those spaces or close all those loops. And so far, like I feel like they're doing a pretty good job at like making you work for it, but you know, if you work for it, you get it kind of thing. And to the extent that sort of loops haven't been closed or whatever it is, it's only because like it's very clear to me that we're going to find out, you know, what some of those open spaces mean going forward. And you know, I think there's certainly a few possibilities. Just while I was waiting for you today, I opened up a bunch of windows and started looking into the series. I hadn't looked into it at all.
oh yeah, it's
And
interesting.
I looked into the series and then I started and I pulled up some windows about things that I thought about during the series. And so when I looked at what inspired it, there were some things there that I'm not familiar with, some things there that I am familiar with, but that, oh, surprised me that it was that was inspired by. And then there's definitely some things that I'm pretty sure it was inspired by that aren't there, right? Because they're a little bit more sort of one-to-one type of comparison. And the main one that it is in my head, and it's just synchronistic or coincidental if you're a coincidence theorist or whatever it is, right? That I think it plays heavily on this book right here, which I happen to be reading at the same time, right? Programming and Metaprogramming in the Human Biocomputer
Oh
by
yeah.
John C. Lilly, right? And there's even like examples and references to studies that he did with people that match up pretty nicely with things that are going on
Mhm.
in this series, right? And so my guess is that somebody working on the show, understands this concept really well, right?
What is the official? Because I've done 2 episodes. I did an episode on season one, then I did an episode on season two. What is the official inspiration for this? Is there one? Do they say?
Yeah, so there's a couple of there's a if you go even if you just go to the basic Wikipedia about the show, which Wikipedia is where I do all my research these days.
Yeah.
There's a thing down here that tells what it was inspired by. Right here, media that influenced Severance
Oh
include
yes,
the back rooms, which is apparently a 4chan thread.
which we've talked about.
Right. And the Backrooms are a fictional location originating from a 2019 4chan thread. One of the best known examples of the liminal space aesthetic. The Backrooms are usually portrayed as an impossibly large, extra dimensional expanse of empty rooms accessed by exiting reality. That definitely, right, is part of that. Creepy pasta, the video game, The Stanley Parable. Office Space, The Truman Show. The Truman Show is pretty. That one's very obvious. Being John Malkovich is pretty obvious. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I have not seen this episode of Black Mirror. I've only ever watched the one episode that you told me
Can
to
you
watch.
hover over it? I think I might have. I've seen all of
White
them.
Christmas.
Anthology. I've probably seen it because I've seen all that, and they're coming out with a new season here in 2 days. So
I've only have watched one episode. It was the episode you told me to watch where it was like the person has another person playing them in a Netflix series in which she's a person who has another person
that's
playing
wild. Yeah.
right? That's the only one I've ever watched, right? Dilbert. And then what's interesting here is it says older influences include the existential hell in the 1944 Jean-Paul Sartre play No Exit, which actually came up in my recent show with Howdy McCoskey. He talks about this play in his book, and it's part of his sort of empty the cave idea. He has a book series called Exit the Cave. And then now he's on to this idea of empty the cave. And so we did talk about this a little bit. So it was interesting to find that here. Obviously, 1984 and George Orwell, Brazil and Dark City are things I'm familiar with, and yes, I can see that certainly elements of that. I have not seen this one called Playtime. It's a 1967
Hmm.
movie. And then yeah, so those are the things that it officially acknowledges as being inspirational. And then when you go down, it talks about MC Escher here, which is oh, that's interesting. Look how much he looks like Jordan Peterson right there. Like that's what
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson's going to look like when he's older. I've never seen that picture of him before. That's kind of crazy. But obviously the whole series takes both aesthetic and sort of um, like ideas from Escher style art. So those are the ones that they're acknowledging. But I feel like if they were to get into this or to Timothy Leary's Eight Circuit model of consciousness or anything like that, that would be too close to giving away the plot, right?
So here, and before we get started, spoiler alerts for anyone who hasn't watched it. And I want to start off with this one because I know this one's gonna really tickle your pickle because we're all about this. So the what I truly enjoyed about the show was number one, it's a crazy concept. Number two, it for some reason it wanted to get like a cult, but not really. But it was at the border of like being a cult, and it's kind of occult in a way where the board is this metaphysical, interdimensional being that speaks to them through like a medium, which is really weird. So I enjoyed that part where I'm like, oh, let's do the magic, let's do the whatever, and then it would like kind of stop, and then there's the goat scene where you're like, what's going on here? And then the I think it was the last episode of season one with the Masonic dancing with the
Right.
with the woes, I think they're called, or whatever, muses, whatever they call them, with the
Yep.
weird ritual thing. So I'm like, this is getting kind of weird, but then they wouldn't really push it. Almost like they put those scenes in there forcefully for whatever weird reason. Obviously, it was Masonic. They were drawing from Masonic sources with the checkerboard floor and all that stuff. And I want to start off with this because I know that you're gonna really appreciate this one. So where it takes place, where it
I
is
know.
the Bell Labs Palmdale complex, and this is in New Jersey.
Yep.
Then this modernist building, dubbed the biggest mirror ever by architectural form due to its mirror, both exterior was the site of, and check this out, was the site of a Nobel Prize discovery, the laser cooling work of Stephen Chu. So apparently, and also this building was like going bankrupt. They weren't like really using it. And then the show picked it up, and that's what they've mostly been using it for. But when we're talking about liminal spaces, we're talking about the what would you call it? The mirror, the alternate reality. What's it called?
Right. The rooms are called
The
uh
back
the
rooms.
back
The back
room. Yeah.
rooms. All of this, right? All this rings bells for us because this is stuff that we've talked about over and over again. Pythagorean
Pythagorean
palaces.
palaces. Yep.
This is literally that. Like this is obviously there's technology and everything and the sort of transhumanism mixed in there, but the concept of quite literally birthing a new version of yourself in these specific places, and then it goes, now it doesn't even have to be that you have to be at this building. They can do the override anywhere, right? The overtime protocol. They can do
Yeah.
it anywhere that these people are at. So that changes everything. I was like, oh, well, it's just in the building and just on this floor where they, assume they're innies. And no, when they're at home, when homeboy hits all the switches and makes him go into their innie on the outside world, like,
Right.
whoa, they can do this anywhere. If they can do that, what else can they do? Right?
Yeah. So Bell Labs, so like I talked about this. I haven't done I saved doing any shows about it for with you, but we did talk about it a little bit, just a tiny bit at Conspiracy Cocktail last week. But so Bell Labs also is the reference of massive dynamic in Fringe. And of course, William Bell was Walter Bishop's lab partner who started Massive Dynamic and then, sort of disappeared off into the other universe and Nina took it over. But it's a reference to Bell Labs. So they've got Massive Dynamic headed by William Bell. And there's a lot of crossover between ideas from Fringe and this for sure.
So
But
are you
yes,
talking about a show? You're talking about a show?
Fringe. Did you ever see the show Fringe? Oh, you've never watched Fringe, brother? Oh, you gotta watch Fringe.
I think you've told me, but again,
You
how many
gotta
times
watch
have you told
Fringe.
Fringe? I think you might
Pow-
have told me.
Power through the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then it gets good, and then it's good the rest of the way. But
5 seasons? Oh my
yeah,
God.
but it's good. It really does a good job at detailing all of the different kinds of technologies and drugs and magic and whatever that they were playing with as part of the MK Ultra project, right? So, but the interior of this building, right? If like the way that the offices are all, there's no regular floors in the building. It's just all around the outside, and then there's this sort of atrium type of thing in the middle, and then of course there's the basement or whatever it is. Like this is pretty true to, if you listen to a lot of people recount strange, experiences from their childhood, perhaps in projects or, with some sort of alternate reality going on for them. You'll often hear descriptions of buildings that match up to what Bell Labs looks like, and then what some of the floors look like in the series here. But you also got all of this stuff, right, at Bell Labs, right? Like all of these weird little things like this, right, which looks a lot like if you watched Westworld. It's the thing
Oh
that's
yeah.
like that black ball that's like the sentient world simulation, right? The whole like layout of some of these pieces of property. I mean, like I don't think this is a yeah, this is the same place. Like look what that looks like. That's a sigil magic and technology in and of itself, right? So I do think it's very significant that they chose to film it there, right? And then, the way that they did a really good job here, like highlighting the presence of certain things and the absence of certain things, right? Like it's weird how all the cars are old in the town,
Yes.
but they've got modern cell phones. But other than like in the building or when that one lady was coming to try and reintegrate him, you don't really see computers or anything like that, even though they're obviously living in modern time,
2058 or something like that. I heard the theory was
right?
somebody figured it out.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting that the phones still look like our phones. But there's another series. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called Maniac. Have you seen that? That's a good one too. Some very like some definite similarities to this. It's definitely a take on the project and the Monte Carlo method, which is like about cybernetics, right? Watch that one too. And that one is another one where it's like weird, like it seems like they're living in modern times, but other than in the place where the experiments are taking place, there's like no technology. There's no cell phones. You don't see any like modern looking computers or anything like that, right? So it's very like it is interesting to kind, and you have to wonder like, that city in West Virginia, that town in West Virginia where you can't have cell phones and there's no Wi-Fi. It's called like green something or other. They have that large telescope there or the large satellite, the receiving dish. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You said Virginia?
I'm pretty sure it's in West Virginia or one of the Carolinas. Just look up like town with no cell phones.
So the that let's see, Green Bank, West Virginia.
Yeah, that's it. Right. So, like, it's almost like it makes me like there, you can't have that because there's a piece of technology that is the main industry of the town that can't have any interference. Right. So, it made me wonder like, are the old cars that are there, like, is it because, having some sort of modern car would interfere with something? Like, what is the explanation of the old cars? I don't think we've gotten an explanation of that yet, but it makes me wonder if it's something, right? If there's some sort of frequency or some sort of, something about modern cars that would upset the whatever it is that's running the
The
town,
tech.
right?
Well, so this is really weird. The Robert C. Byrd Green Bank Telescope is the world's largest fully steerable radio telescope. Green Bank, a small town in West Virginia, has become a nightmare for tech-savvy teenagers. With a population of only 143 people, the town has made wireless signals illegal. What a
Well, you know what has
bizarre
happened
thing.
because of that, don't you? All the people who think that they're Wi-Fi sensitive or targeted individuals, they want to go live there.
Oh,
So, right.
interesting.
And so like we watched some documentary about like people who are sensitive to frequencies, and there was like one chick in there who like, life would be all better if she could go live in Green Bank, West Virginia or whatever it is, right?
So that aspect of it being old cars and no tech, I think is a buy because remember he lives in an apartment pretty much that is provided to him by Lumen. And
Right.
I think that and if you notice when I forget the name of her character, but when she goes to the town to like meet with her childhood friend and her cousin or something or other and talk about her mom where she does that weird thing where she puts the tube in her mouth and starts like
Yep, yep, yep.
gasping for air. If you notice that
Oh, hey,
town,
hold on a second. Someone's banging at the door and I have the double.
when I do that, she gets pissed.
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, go ahead.
So when the lady goes, and does that whole weird thing, that town that she was in was also a Lumen town. And if you notice,
Yep,
it's all abandoned and everything. So I think it's a product of it being a Lumen town. And this concept of maybe they're drawing from this green bank where everything else is illegal. You can't have anything else, even though he does. Right, he does have a cell phone, but they look like our cell phones today. Maybe they're only able to use certain technology because of what they have inside of them, which is literally a piece of technology. So it
right.
could interfere with that, right?
Right. So the one guy, the guy who Petey had a flip phone. Everybody else has like a normal looking iPhone, but Petey had like an old school flip phone. Also in that old town, which is we'll talk about the significance of that old town, Cold Harbor, at some point in this
Yes.
conversation. I noticed there that like the old lady certainly had no real lights in her house. They were using lanterns, so there was no
Mm.
electricity, and we couldn't tell when she arrived there and she went into the diner, it was daytime, but he was getting ready to close up after lunchtime. So I'm also wondering if it was a no electricity town on some level. And of course, that is where Lumen's original industry was, and their original industry was an ether mill, right? An ether mill. And they're referring to it as ether, ether, not aether, right? And there's the scene when they're in the old lady's house where he's like, "You want to get high?" And they get high on ether, right? And so
Oh.
like that's what Lumen used to manufacture. And some people who grew up in that town and work there are still doing that, even though they're not really doing it for Lumen. They're doing it in the dregs of what Lumen used to be. But my guess is like there's a many sort of pronged innuendo about what the ether mill really was and what that's all about that I think will maybe be developed, some more going forward. But I think it's possibly a reference to the other ether, right? Like, like ether science kind of thing.
So, really
But
quick, because the effects of ether intoxication are similar to those of alcohol intoxication, but more potent. Also, due to NMDA antagonism, the user may experience distorted thinking, euphoria, and visual and auditory hallucinations at higher doses. So, it does put you in an altered state of consciousness.
the other thing about ether, it was one of Hunter S. Thompson's favorite drugs. That like,
Really?
right? If you watch the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and or read the book, right? Like he was into that. It's sniffing it off of the towels and whatever it is. But the high from ether is incredibly short, right? So it's like you're basically gone for a second and back, or you're high for just a second and it's like euphoric and then you're back. And so it's one of these things that requires like an ongoing use, right? It's kind of thing. And, whether they were manufacturing ether as the drug to cure people's problems and they found that was not efficient enough. And so they came up with this other concept, which is this idea of severance, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's to detach people from the uncomfortable part of their life to make them not feel pain or be able to cope or whatever it is, right? And they're a pharmaceutical company. It's referred to in the show as a pharmaceutical company, right? And as we move into the kind of age we are, eventually like what we think of as narcotic drugs are probably going to become less common, and we're going to have more of this sort of algorithmic or sequenced or sort of device type pharmaceutical stuff. We already have devices, right? They have like the heart rate thing. What are the heart things that are the pacemakers, right? Now they have Neuralink for some people who have blood sugar issues. There's things you can implant and whatever. Like things are moving that way, and it feels to me like that is the sort of whether the original intention of Lumen was good and it just went awry when people get a little power, or whether it was always some evil fucking kind of thing that the promise is going to be to take your pain away, right? And that's a
Would you
fucking
sever
path to
yourself
hell.
if you had the option?
No, I mean, I don't, but like, I don't know that I don't know that we're not, right? Like, I don't know that we're not. And I certainly believe at this point that like forms of mind control, forms of narcotics have been experimented with, obviously, and used that do that on a temporary level. We don't know how much farther than that it's gone. I'm 100% certain that if somebody had the idea to make a TV series or a movie or whatever about this, then there probably is some compartmentalized program within the military or within some corporation or within an intelligence agency where that is going on, where the need for compartmentalization and for like for people's actions to be somewhat conspicuous have gotten to the level where a complete separation between their job and the rest of the life is necessary, or at least deemed necessary. I don't know that that's ever really necessary. So my guess is for whatever reason, I think that there are probably people living like that. There are programs, both off the books and probably like when I say on the books, like I think there's varying levels of read in on things like that, right? And then I think there's a lot of people like who are living that way and don't know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember like in my research days into like targeted individuals, like when I was like pretty far down that rabbit hole, I remember reading a report from someone who was talking about like the different tactics that are used in targeting of individuals, including like street theater and gang stalking and like public like public like theater, right? Like kind of thing. And they were talking about this person found a job, like a job online that said like, okay, whatever, $30 an hour, no experience necessary, come
Mm-hmm.
here, for your interview or whatever it is. And they remember going to the job interview and then they don't remember anything else, but all of a sudden they like snapped to it and they were in a grocery store bothering someone and they were explaining about how like they would do these street theaters where like somebody at the front of the store would be like, everybody drop your bags and leave the store, and they would like do that. And so then the person who's being targeted or harassed or whatever, like, is that person gonna also drop their bag and go, or are they going to be like, well, what the fuck are these people doing? Just all kinds of weird shit to play with people's perception and willingness to do things that don't make sense and whatever it is, right? And they didn't remember anything between going to the job interview and like coming to in some situation like that, right?
Whoa.
And again, this was something. So I was reading something like this on a chat board online, which doesn't mean that it's true or that it's happening. But for someone to even have that idea, right? Like there's got to be some resonance to sort of something somewhere. They weren't like making claims of grandeur about doing some fantastical thing. They're like, I fucking woke up in a grocery store and I was doing annoying things to people and I didn't know why, right? Um, but so it like is that just plain hypnosis? Is that drugs? Or are there, right? So I don't know if there's a town in the United States where you can go and get a job working for a corporation that puts a chip and does that. My guess would be that there are things up to and including or other versions of things like that in special projects and programs in weapons companies in tech now. My guess would be that that's probably pretty prevalent in certain kinds of like physics and technology, quantum computing, and things like this, right? That, some of the things being experimented with in the eyes of the people who own those companies or who are running those programs are so classified that you can't risk somebody,
Leaking. Yeah.
carrying that information from one domain into another.
I think that, yeah, I think that would be applicable in jobs of high security clearance, how you're saying national security. And uh, growing up, right, being into all this sort of stuff, one of the main things I would always wonder about and think about a lot was not so much anymore, but what's actually going on in Area 51. And I remember I
Mhm.
saw this documentary or something or other where they followed so some guy left Area 51. He obviously worked there. They followed him home and they knocked on his door, and when he opened up he's like, hey, do you work at Area 51? Like, what do you do there? He closed the door on them, like he wouldn't talk about it because they weren't allowed to.
Mhm.
But what if it's because they don't remember because of something like this, where
Right.
have you ever been hypnotized?
Yes. So like when I was 20, right? I had like a crazy year. Like I had a year where like I had never been like a partier or into drugs or anything like that. And from someone much older than me that I met, I got into cocaine, right? And my life went from being like successful student, very responsible, to like a complete fuck up in 1 year. But then it kind of was over and worked my way back to things, right? And had another round with drugs later. But during that period of time, I also was in therapy, and nobody knew that I was on drugs other than the people that I was doing it with. But the therapist that I was going to also knew that one of those people, right? And so I was going to therapy for depression, and she wanted to try some kind of like I don't know if it was like supposed to be full on hypnosis or if it was just more like hypnotic suggestion as part of therapy. And for some reason I agreed to it, but at a certain point, like I don't know what happened. Like I either felt myself falling into it, or for a second I didn't remember something. And I hopped up off her couch and I was freaking out and I was demanding to know what I had told her and what was going on. And like, I don't know if it was just because I was fearful that maybe like I had acknowledged the drug use or implicated the other person that she knew in the drug use. And I don't know what it was. I was so mad. Like, I'm not a person who gets like super highly angry and has that like huge, like, not when I don't mean like huge blow up, but I mean like, some people when they get angry, like that energy field around them, you could feel that. Like I could feel that all around me. I could feel like she was looking at me like she had just triggered something that she didn't mean to trigger, which in hindsight later, like I wonder if she tapped on a program that had been there for me from my youth, because I had some pretty strange, experiences and memories. And I've had a few other times where something like that happened, that hit something that seemed to be there that I wasn't aware of. But that's the only time that I consciously know that something like that was happening.
So, do you remember the part where she was trying to hypnotize you and put you in that state?
I
Because
mean,
I've never been hypnotized before,
yeah, I
but
mean, it was kind of like you see like in the movies or TV where they're like telling you to focus on something and breathe or whatever. Like I don't remember exactly what she said. All I remember is I was hearing her say it, and then I wasn't hearing her say it anymore, and it felt like some tremendous amount of time had passed. And she swore it hadn't when I came to and was mad. And like when I went to my car, we ended the session early and it wasn't that long after I got there. But whatever it was, felt something about it felt so uncomfortable to me that I lost my shit. Right.
yeah. So, this concept of, and this is something that Fritz Springmeier has written about, right? The fracturing of people's psyche, MK Ultra, sort of that thing. Because think about it, if whatever makes us who we are,
Mm-hmm.
if it's soul, if it's consciousness, if it's whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
what are the chances that there are other things existing within us? And I'm not talking about, because people can quickly talk about, oh, you're possessed or whatever it is, right? You got a demon inside of you, and that's taking over your body, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm talking about like an actual alternate reality. If you think about split personality disorder, and in this particular show, right, the innie and the outie, they're distinct. And I don't know, obviously the outside person is a person, but is the innie a person? And then you get into the ethics of it all,
Right.
where what rights does that any have, right? And you see the part where she wants to quit, and then ding, she has the response in her hand like automatically. And you go, what
Yeah.
happened? So then they play the video of like, hey, no, you can't quit. So they don't really have a choice. They don't really have a say, because but you birthed that part of you into
Mm-hmm.
existence. So it's making me think like, uh, it's just bizarre. The concept is so bizarre, but it's not too far fetched, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think
It's
there's
nothing too crazy.
right. Right. I mean, it's not the like the concept itself isn't too crazy. The like the purpose and the application of it, the way it was like being done, like that seems kind of batshitty and whatever it is. But I mean, this is the there's very real reasons why a person might split off a part of themselves just on their own, right? Like some traumatic thing happens, and it doesn't always have to be satanic ritual abuse or MK
Hmm.
Ultra. It could literally be like they, got in a devastating car accident and lost a limb, and in order to like not lose their shit, their mind did something where or whatever it is, or it could be a battle, something that happened in battle and war. It can even be like a drug experience. Like some people have like really weird trips on acid or mushrooms, and they like, don't necessarily like go crazy in the classic sense of what we're thinking of, but like some idea that came up in the trip, like becomes a fixation for them and almost like a
Hmm.
secret part of themselves and whatever, right? So there's all kinds of like, I think that is the way that our minds actually work. And that is what I mean here in this book. And it's difficult because it seems like, have you done much research into John Lilly?
No, I know about the jerking the dolphins off, but that's about it.
Right. So it seems like like he had a lot there. I mean, he's associated with a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
From the 60s and 70s and whatnot in terms of like LSD and dolphins and telepathy and underwater breathing and the biocomputer and stuff like that. And it seems to me like he was a very brilliant scientist, right? And really wanted to do expansive work and um, seemed to be somewhat ethical about it, right? And or at least kind of like he was doing it for his own sort of curiosity, and he hoped that people's minds could expand and they could do it for themselves. And then I think, something happened. Either, he became weakened mentally because of drug addiction, and so it was easy to influence him into darker things to be done with the same ideas, or whether somebody just literally took his research and started doing other things with it. And then if he wanted to remain relevant in any of these programs, it's hard to say. He doesn't strike me as from the beginning, at least what
Hmm.
I've read so far. And some people that I've talked to, one of whom knew him, kind of agrees that like he was brilliant, he had great ideas, and then he kind of lost his mind and went off the plantation or whatever it is, right? Um, but you can see how he's trying to understand how this computer works and to what extent, like what parts of it, are you definitely in charge of, maybe in charge of, seemingly not at all in charge of, but maybe can become in charge of. How do the different parts of your mind relate to one another? What is like the superseding program and what are the sub programs under it? What is hardware? What is software? Right? These are all important things to understand if you want to take control of your own mind. Whenever we talk about mind control, we're assuming that like there's some man or some machine outside of yourself that is trying to program you, control you, get you to act in a way that is for their best interest, not yours, or whatever it is. But a very powerful thing for someone who struggles with anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts or trouble pay ADD or, whatever it is to learn to manage their own mind. That's also a form of mind control, but that would be a very sovereign form, right? Like a form of you doing it yourself. And so like the tools are valid either way. The big question is if we understand how something works, who's going to be in charge of that, right? And so, I think that is, and I'm not talking about like, okay, people can make the decision to sever themselves, though certainly they can do that, right? But, there are ways, and there's stories in here that he shares, right? Like it's obvious he experimented largely on himself and on people voluntarily, at least in the beginning. This was one of his early books, right? There was other weird stuff that came later. A lot of it seemed to be about helping people overcome, programming from childhood, sort of take the sort of power out of some like overblown weird memory from childhood that is affecting you now and sort of repressing your ability to maximize your potential and things like that. I mean, I'm only let's see, 68 pages in, so I'll like let you know as we get further along, if I still feel that way about it. But it seems like, for people to know about themselves, this is not a terrible idea. But if there's somebody influential around you who knows this and you don't, it can be pretty dangerous, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, um,
I never thought of it like that because you do get that picture in your mind whenever you do think of mind control. This mad scientist in a lab trying to take over your thoughts, trying to make Manchurian candidate sort of thing, where
right,
they say Okeechobee, and then you just you wake up in a grocery store, bothering people, whatever it is,
right,
but what you're saying is very powerful where if somebody is able right through meditation or through magic or through whatever it is be able to take over themselves and their own body and their own mind because a lot of people do struggle with that and that's what in my opinion what something like religion or some other sort of beliefs that like think about AA where
right.
it's
Oh,
about
yeah,
transforming yourself in a sort of way. Freemasonry, right? It's all about the great work and purifying yourself and whatever they do behind closed doors, but it's is that similar concept. And so I never really thought about it in that perspective. As far as John C. Lilly, the only thing I know is the whole LSD thing, the dolphins, telekinesis. I believe they were trying to they were trying to communicate with dolphins
yes.
is the whole thing. And he also wrote about wasn't he friends with the guy who wrote the Illuminatus? What's his name?
Robert Anton Wilson.
Robert Anton. They were friends, weren't they? Because he
I
wrote
mean,
about
not
like
like I'm sure they knew each other. I know that like Timothy Leary and Robert Anton Wilson were really good friends. I'm sure they all
Leary.
knew, all these people knew each other, right? Um, uh, there's also lily wave technology. Have you ever looked into lily waves? That's fascinating as well. And that
No,
has to do with the dirty electricity in all of our homes. And
no, it
that's
sounds
related to
familiar.
him also,
Is
right?
Leary the LSD guy or is it
Leary
Lilly?
is the LSD guy, the eight circuit model of consciousness.
I see. I always get the two mixed up. That's what happens. You see, because it kind of sounds, Leary, Lily, kind of
Yeah.
sounds the same.
Well, same time period, right? Same group of friends. But the other thing, Juan, is like think about like we were talking about earlier, mind palace, right? If somebody who is trying to correlate and unlock like
Yes.
really tremendous amounts of information and knowledge and like you can't have all of that stuff swimming around in your mind all the time, otherwise you feel like a crazy person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not anywhere near the level of genius of someone who created the idea of Pythagorean palaces, but sometimes with all the shit we talk about, like I might have one good show with you on Monday and another one with someone on Tuesday and Wednesday another one, and by the end of the fucking week it's like my mind feel I can feel like the information coming out of my ears and my eyes and whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? Like if you can develop methods to store, compartmentalize, retrieve, understand like what information is appropriate for what time and what setting and whatever it is, this is a really like clever way for a person to like catalog and index like a lot of different kind of information like emotional intelligence, technological intelligence, creative intelligence, and have it and know how to access the right thing at the right time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and that goes to the Escher work as well. A person's mind can be a palace. It can be like a tremendous work of art, but just like when you're building these structures, it all comes down to who holds the keys to what rooms, right? And do people understand what they have? Right? Are you who's in charge of the information? Or is there just a bunch of information stored in there that like you're not familiar with, you don't understand, you didn't put there? Or is it like, if I go on your computer, I'm sure I could figure out some way that you have your information stored, but I'm sure you do some things different
You want
than
to you want to see my desktop?
yeah, let me see your desktop. I
Here
showed
we
you
go.
mine once before. You were like, no way, dude.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. So here's my desktop. Let me see if I can share screen. This is how you know I'm OCD. Ready? Boom.
I like that. I've never seen the orange cones. That's fun. Yeah. So yours are like what I like about yours is yours are all like they're even, for some reason my computer doesn't make them like parallel and like in
Oh, because
straight
you don't have
line.
the grid on. That's why.
Oh, how do you turn the grid on?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it's because there's a way for it to like snap and stuff like that. Like if I move it here, it'll snap, and yours is
Ah,
just like free flow.
yeah, mine, and right, like I'll try to line it up and finally I'm just like, fuck it, right? But like I have like files and sub files and files within files, and I don't do like I always just do like folders and files. I don't do like the
Yeah.
baskets or whatever the fuck else, right? So, but I know I so far, at least no time recently, have found something on my computer that I didn't put there. And like occasionally something won't be where
I would
I,
hope not.
right?
That's dangerous.
Right? Occasionally, a thing won't be either where I thought I put it or where it should be, but generally, like I can find it. Very rarely have I been unable to find something on my own computer. But if I were to go to your computer and you're like, like I don't have your permission, so you didn't tell me what the name of the file is, but I know
Yeah.
you've been doing research on something and I'm trying to like steal it for my own thing. Like I might not be able to find it, even though like we know a lot of the same information, right? What we do with it, where we put it, and how we sort of unlock it is unique to each person. And people should hold their own master key.
So the another thing I appreciate about the show, right, and in line with what you're talking about being able to organize information in a sort of way to be able to recall it. It's all about recollection. It's all about remembering. Plato said that we know everything already. We just have to remember. And what's interesting is that in Francis Yates' work, The Art of Memory, which is a great book, you should check it out, and Robert Flood and all these other alchemical guys, they talked about because one of the main components in this show is what? Not being able to remember. Oh, how'd you get that cut on your hand? Or, oh, they told me I
Right,
slammed it on the door. Not being able to remember and recall what is happening. And they always ask him, like, aren't you, like, what do you do for work? I don't know. I just show up and I don't remember what I did. Blah, blah, blah. The innies can't remember what the outies did and vice versa.
right,
And Francis Yates' work, one of the important things about memory and memory palace and the art of memory is the way that they speak about it. And it's something that I haven't been able to understand 100%, if I'm being honest, is that you're able to do this mnemonic technique to where, though, and again, this is the way they put it, you're able to achieve sort of what I would call superhuman power.
right.
And it's unlocked in yourself by your mind. And this is interesting because if you look at any superhero, if you look at any superhero or villain, even, it usually is started and triggered by some traumatic event, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you have the whole superhero through trauma. Even in the Disney movies, it's always archetypal where they get rid of the parents, right? So that they go through the hero's journey of surpassing everybody and blah blah blah. You have the I just finished watching Solo Leveling. It's an anime where it starts off he's the underdog. Spoiler alert, he becomes the most powerful one, right? But he's able to do it through hacking reality. Like
mm-hmm.
he went through this traumatic event and these interdimensional portals that open up, and then
Yes,
he wakes up and he's able to see the overlay of reality in front of him, and he's able to hear a voice. He's like, what the hell is that? Or like, what is it? He's able to manifest things out of reality and like use this, whatever. It's a whole crazy show. Point being, he was able to peek behind the
right.
veil
Yeah.
of reality and then manipulate it from, that's alchemy. You know what
So,
I'm
I mean,
saying?
I think the big thing, like the biggest like hacks are learning to change your relationship to time and to dimension or to space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have the ability to step outside of time and then step back in, well, suddenly you have unlimited time.
Yes.
Right? Like for like we all know those people. Like, how the fuck do they get so much stuff done? Right? Like it almost doesn't make sense.
Adderall.
Also, like a lot of these most fantastic buildings, cathedrals, art projects in the world, it's like, did the person like live to be 500 years old? Like, how
Well,
did they do?
those took hundreds of years, by the way, Emily. I mean,
Right, but I also, I mean, I think that it's possible, and of course, a lot of them were built by Masons or other groups
Yes.
of people that play with these same ideas. They're probably better at it than we were, and they started to develop ways to, especially to learn, step out of some time to go learn something, right? Come back and put it to use, right? Like think about
Go
how
into the
much.
back
Go
rooms.
to the back room. Think about like how you and I both will be like, if I just had unlimited time and I didn't have to go to work for a living and do the chores and do the laundry and whatever it is, like I could learn so much shit and I could do
Yeah,
this,
my head
that.
would be this big. It'd be like
Right, right. So
mega
I'm
mind.
sure that there are time lords out there who have hacked this system to the point where it's like, okay, I have a task I know I want to do, right? I need to like literally step outside of my life, step outside of time, right? Go do that task, which is maybe to, learn a new skill, read a huge tome, whatever it is, and then come back in with that knowledge. And it seems like they're a genius and it seems like they learned it overnight, but in whatever place they went or whatever time out, so that whatever the thing is outside of time, they were there for as long as they needed to be there in order
Right.
to do the thing, right? And I think that's more the sort of like metaphysics and the alchemy and whatever it is that that we're talking about when we're talking about developing superhuman abilities. Sure, like some of the movies have people with, Incredible Hulk, giant biceps, or turn
Yeah.
green, and whatever it is, right? But mostly what it is being able to accomplish things that normally take a lot of time and seemingly no time, or to cover great distances in a
Yeah.
single bound type of idea, right? Um,
So I just saw this past weekend because my son likes Minecraft. I saw the Minecraft movie.
I like how you blame it
And
on your son.
yeah, well, honestly, it wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be. I enjoyed it. Obviously, it's a corny kid movie, but I enjoyed it. But there was a lot of aspects in it to where, again, it reminded me a lot about this,
Very
about
esoteric. Yes.
very where he opens up a portal with this interdimensional, it's a cube in our reality but it's an orb to them.
Yes.
And what that reminded me was that these angels, whatever it is, they don't perceive, right? It makes me think of HP Lovecraft when he's presenting this horror, this mind-boggling, right? These entities drive you crazy, and the way that he describes the landscape is non-Euclidean. When
Yes.
you think of non-Euclidean, you think of something like just morphing and coming together. And when they were talking to
Non-Euclidean
him on,
geometry. Yeah.
yes, when they were talking to him on the other side, like, oh, you have the orb. He's like, this is a cube. I'm like, oh, those entities don't see it that way. They see it as something else, right? And they look different and they act differently but it's literally about going interdimensionally. And even the character that's played by Jack Black, he's telling the kid, like, hey, do you want to stay here? Because here anything is possible.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the YouTube version of my recent conversation with Juan Ayala. If you would like to hear the full, almost 2 hour episode ad-free, you can find that on Patreon, Locals, or Rockfin. Links and promo codes are in the description box below. We'll see you next time.